are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade, we'll actually be doing our advanced writing, our English advanced writing, um, which is basically for high school. So it's going to be a high school English advanced writing. And before we start with our lesson on advanced writing, which is going to be subject verb agreement, we're going to log into aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with your username as well as your password, then you can select the subject of language arts. And we are going to be focusing on the grade 9 level, right? And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of subject verb agreement. And remember, we are doing high school advanced writing, and our chapter is subject verb agreement, right? So our chapter is subject verb agreement, which is going to be advanced writing for high school. Our subject is English language arts, grade 9. And the lessons that we're going to be focusing on is to identify and correct errors with subject verb agreement, and to identify and correct errors with indefinite pronoun verb agreement. Right? All right. So now we're going to, like we said, our chapter is subject verb agreement, right? And we're going to be either identifying and correcting errors, right? Whether it's going to be subject verb agreement or whether it's going to be with indefinite pronoun verb agreement. So the subject and the verb, right, within a sentence or clause, it needs to agree in number. So both the subject as well as the verb in a sentence or clause must agree in number. And when a subject is singular, then we need to use a singular verb. And singular verbs, they usually end in S. So singular verb usually ends in S. For example, Sarah visits her mother. So Sarah visits a grandmother, right? And if you look at we see that the verb, it needs to end in S, right? So a singular verb ends in S. So Sarah, right? is a subject, but it's a singular subject. It's because we're only basically making mention of one person, which is Sarah, right? So, which means that we say that the singular subject needs to basically agree with a singular verb. So, and we said a singular verb, it ends with S. So, Sarah being a singular subject needs to agree, or it agrees with the singular verb which ends in S, and that is visits her grandmother. All right. Another example is Brian teaches art history. So Brian teaches art history, right? So basically, Brian being a singular subject, meaning that we're only making mention of one person, and a singular verb, right? We say that it ends either in S or ES. It is teaches art history. So Brian teaches art history, as well as Sarah visits her grandma. And that is basically where we say that when a subject is singular, we use a singular verb because both subject and verb needs to be in agreement. And we say that the singular verbs, they usually end in S. All right. So basically, when a singular subject, when we have a subject that is singular, then we also use a verb that is singular. Now, then also when it comes to a plural subject, when a subject is plural also, then we use a plural verb. So when the subject is plural, we use a plural verb. Because like we said, it needs to be in agreement. And plural verbs, they usually do not end in S, right? So plural verbs, they do not end in S. For example, Kylie and Jesse. This is more than one person, it's two people. It's plural. So Kylie and Jesse, they walk home. Not walks home, just walk home. So Kylie and Jesse walk home. So there we have our plural subject, which is two people, and our plural verb, right? We say that it does not end in S. So then we have Kylie and Jesse walk home. Those brownies, right? So those brownies, so brownies, meaning that we're talking about more than one brownie. So those brownies smell delicious. So the word smell, as you can see, it does not end in an S. So those brownies smell delicious, as well as Kyle and Jesse, they walk home. And like we said, the subject and the verb within a sentence or clause, they must agree in number, right? So when a subject is singular, we use a singular verb, and singular verbs, they usually end in S. And when the subject is plural, we use a plural verb. And plural verbs, they usually do not end in S, right? The subject as well as the verb within a sentence or clause, it needs to be in agreement, needs to agree in number. So also when it comes to the subject verb agreement, right? The subject verb agreement is usually determined by the simple subject, right? So the subject verb agreement is usually determined by the simple subject. And when it comes to a simple subject, right? And then the simple subject and the verb, they aren't always adjacent, right? And an example is, if we look at an example, and then it says, the excitement of the fans is palpable. So the excitement of the fans, right? So the excitement of the fans is, which is our verb, palpable, right? So the subject of the excitement of our fans is palpable. And another example is the violinist who performed the duet work together quite often. And in this case, right, since the verb immediately, right, it follows the subject, we can then say that the sentences are inverted. So some sentences are inverted, right, which means that the subject, it follows the verb. And as you can see with these two sentences, our subject is the excitement of the fans, the violinist who performed the duet, and our verbs are is as well as work, right? So subject, verb, and agreement, it is usually determined by our simple subject. And we need to remember that a simple subject and the verb, they aren't always adjacent. But in this case, right, some sentences are inverted, which means that the subject, it follows the verb. Right. So remember, we said that when it comes to subject verb agreement, then the subject and the verb in a sentence or within a clause, they need to agree in number, right? When we use a singular verb for the most or for most indefinite pronouns, including each, either, neither, one, everyone, everybody, everything, anyone, anybody, anything, someone, somebody, something, no one, nobody, or nothing, or add nothing, Those are singular verbs, right, for the indefinite pronouns. So all those words that I just mentioned, right, that is a singular verb for most indefinite pronouns. And if we look at an example, right, it says everyone generally leaves the office around 6 o'clock. So everyone is our singular verb for most indefinite pronouns. So everyone usually leaves the office around 6 o'clock. Or we can say nothing in the kitchen works properly, right? So we use a singular verb for the most indefinite pronouns, and we made a list, or we basically went over a list of indefinite pronouns. And we basically use a plural verb for the indefinite pronouns, which are both, few, many, others, as well as several. For example, I have tried many. So I've tried many red velvet cupcakes, but few taste as delicious as Kathy's. Or we can say, these plums are almost ripe. In fact, several look ready to eat now. And some indefinite pronouns, right? Like all, any, most, none, and some can go with singular as well as plural verbs depending on what the pronoun refers to. For example, I owned several winter coats, but none fit quite right. Or the pronoun refers to, if we can say basically, if we look at that sentence, then we can see that the pronoun refers to the plural noun coats. So the verb is plural. All right. And we are doing our tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca. And we're going to go to aplusstudents.ca. Right, so we're going to continue our tutorial lesson on aplusstudents.ca. And we see that our chapter is subject-verb agreement. And the first lesson that we are focusing on is to identify and correct errors with subject-verb agreement. All right. So we see that the subject as well as the verb within a sentence or clause, they must agree in number. And when a subject is singular, we use a singular verb. And singular verbs, they usually end in S. And if we look at a few examples, it says, Sarah visits her grandmother. Sarah being a singular subject and visits being a singular verb that ends in S. Brian teaches art history. So Brian being a singular subject and teaches being our singular verb that ends either in S or ES. And when a subject is plural, right, then we also need to use a plural verb. And plural verbs, they do not end in S. For example, Kylie and Jesse, they walk home. We don't say Kylie and Jesse walks home. So we just say Kylie and Jesse walk home. The same with the second one. Those brownies smell delicious. And we say the subject verb agreement is usually determined by the simple subject. And we need to remember that a simple subject and the verb, they aren't always adjacent. For example, the excitement of the fans is palpable, and the violinists who perform the duet work together quite often. And if we look at that two sentences, right, then some of the sentences are inverted, meaning that the subject, it follows the verb. All right. And if we now look at the bottom with our sentences that are inverted, right? This is now how we can rewrite it in order for it to be inverted. Like the original sentence would be, your blueberry cupcakes are here. That would be the original sentence. But the inverted sentence would be like, here are your blueberry cupcakes. And that is where the subject goes after the verb. All right. So now let's go to, we need to find the error with subject verb agreement, and we need to select the incorrect verb and type it correctly. It says, the age of Old Ship Church, the oldest church in continuous use in the USA, states, United States. Where is this word? In comparison to that of many European structures. Do we say pale in comparison? Because we need to select the verb, right? So it says the age of the old church, the oldest church in continuous use in the United States, it pales in comparison to that of many European structures. Pales, right? And if we even look at the word pale, right? Pale is a verb, right? And pale means it's becoming pale in everyone's face from the shock of fear, or it can be seen to become less important. And I think that is the second one, where it seems to be less important. So that is pales in comparison to that of many European structures. So Goffin's cockatoo, a highly intelligent species native to Indonesia, do we say is adept at learning new skills by observing other birds? And since we're talking about one bird, then yes, we can say it is adept, not are adept. Is adept at learning new skills by observing other birds. All right, so is our verb. And the Doppler effect or the Doppler effect results from the fact that as a moving object approaches as observer, the apparent frequency of its sound waves increases. So the sound waves, they increase, right? So we say the sound waves, it increases. If it's a subject, oh, the Doppler effect, which means it increases. All right, so let's go to our test. So we're going to find the errors with subject-verb agreement, and we're going to select the incorrect verb that type it correctly. Yeah. Do we say yeah or your large double espresso macchiato? Or here is your large double espresso macchiato, sir, Pam said as she handed the drink across the counter. So if we are making mention of one person, right? And then we're going to say, here is your double espresso. And is correct. At the Naval Surface Warfare Center outside of Washington, D.C., a sophisticated indoor ocean that can recreate a different open water conditions. I think is used to test models of a ship are used because it says at the Naval Surface Warfare Center at Washington, a sophisticated indoor ocean. So which means that we're going to say is used to test model ships. And is correct. So well done. Well done. And we said Goffin's cockatoo is highly intelligent species native to Indonesia. We say is adept at learning new skills by observing other birds. So we can say is adept at learning, observing other birds. So is correct. And then we say visitors at Acton, Tunisian Muknal, a cave in Belize that serves as a Maya archaeological site. All right, and we say that visitors to the Acton Tunishi Mukhtar, a cave in Belize that serves as a Maya archaeologist site. Do we say have to swim to the entrance or has to swim to the entrance? Let's see. Have to swim to the entrance. All right. And then we say the elaborately decorated tombs in ancient Egypt. They offer a glimpse into the history of the area's wildlife. So they offer, or do they offers? So do we say they offer or offers? So we can say that it offer a glimpse into the history of the area's wildlife. So offer is correct. Now we're going to identify and correct errors with indefinite pronoun verb agreement. So we need to find errors with the subject verb agreement. Then we need to select the incorrect verb and type it correctly, right? And we said with the subject and the verb in a sentence or clause, it must agree in number. So we use a singular verb for most indefinite verbs, which we made mention of. And we use a plural verb for indefinite pronouns, which is both, few, many, others, and several. And then we have some indefinite pronouns, right? They can go without a singular or plural verb, depending on what the pronouns refer to. All right, so now if we look at this one, it says, when someone in Hong Kong, let's say, offers, because remember it is a singular subject with a singular verb that ends in S. So when someone in Hong Kong offers you a business card, the polite way to accept it is to take it with both hands and look at it closely before putting it away. So we said when someone in Hong Kong offers you a business card, the polite way to accept it is to take it with both hands and look at it closely before putting it away. So offers. All right. So we said that if we are, let's say, by the first example question, right? We said that if somebody in Hong Kong offers you something like a business card, then you need to first look through it before putting it in your bag. Ooh. All right, let us go to our test, right? That is jumping. E. So we're going to our test, right? Where in Joey's opinion, we need to find the error with the subject verb agreement, right? So in Joey's opinion, a few of the 32 teams in the National Football League, do we say is legitimate contenders for the Super Bowl of this year or are legitimate contenders in the Super Bowl this year? So do we say they is or they are? All right. So if we choose the correct word, we're going to say they are. It says, in Joe's opinion, a few. So which means that they are. So few of the 32 teams, because it's more than one, in the National Football League, they are legitimate contenders for the Super Bowl this year. So well done. R is correct. And though Anita and Marvin disagree about most major campus issues, both of these student council members, do we say, has been working to find common ground or have been working to find common ground? We need to choose between has been or have been working to find common ground. So now it says, though Anita and Marvin disagree about most major campus issues, both of these student council members, right, let's say, have been working to find common ground or has been working to find common ground. Have been working to find common ground, has been working to find common ground. So have been is correct. And although several developing countries have made recent progress in supplying safe drinking water to their citizens, many around the world still, do we say many around the world still face water related issue diseases? So it basically say many around the world still face water related diseases. So which means that face. All right. So we'll say although several developing countries have made the progress in supplying safe drinking water to the citizens, many around the world still face water related diseases. So face is the correct word because remember when it is a plural subject, then we need to also have a plural verb, and the plural verb does not end with an S. And if nobody in the audience, we say laughs at my jokes tonight, my career may be well over, Stanley thought nervously as he took the stage. So if nobody in the audience, do we say laugh? So if nobody is referring to general people, so laughs, which means that it was plural, it was singular, right? So laughs was the correct word. All right, so that is a subject, that is our lesson on subject verb agreement. And we said that your subject and your verb needs to be in agreement, right? So which means that if you have a singular subject, then you need to also be in agreement with a having a singular verb which end in s. And if you have a plural subject, then you need to be in agreement that you need to have a plural verb, but it does not end in an s. All right, so thank you very much for joining our class. Thank you for interacting, and I really hope you're going to have a great day further. Goodbye.